Thank you for attending another Old Testament study with Hillel and Rick. It's good to have you all here. Hopefully, you've been watching all these. If not, you might want to go back to the beginning because, you know, where we start in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. We are in, I think, 14 or 15 now. So, yeah, verse 14 or 15, not chapter. So yeah, go back, maybe watch those if you haven't, and then, but if you have, continue on here. And I guess watch all the way through, and we'll see you at the end. Bye for now. On with the show.
Radio live? Yes, I am. I'm live. Rick, you're live too. It's a good thing to know we're not zombies. So I'm Hillel, and this is Rick, and we're here to talk about Genesis, and we're going to talk about Genesis 1:14 today, and we'll see how far we get. I hope to get from 1:14 to 1:19, covering the whole description of the creation of the sun and moon and stars. It's an interesting discussion. I've got the Rambam with me, but I have also brought another book here that. Oh shoot, where's it? How do I get this in my screen? My face. Okay, this it's yellowish green, I guess. This is called the Torah Anthology, and the Torah Anthology. It's an interesting book, and I'll just give a quick introduction of what it is. So it's called Mem Loez, and it was written originally by Rabbi Yaakov Kuli. Rabbi Kuli was Sephardic. It means he came from Spain, that area around the Mediterranean. He started this off as a big project, and the whole point was he wanted to distill down as much of Judaism as possible in a single series of books as a commentary. So you can read this book, and a friend of mine, who's read the entire series. I've read different books from it, and but you can find like pretty much everything in it, and you'll have, if you read the whole series, you'll have a pretty good working understanding of Judaism after you walk away from it. But it's a massive collection. There are lots and lots of books, and it starts with Genesis, and it goes all the way to the entire Tanakh, the Hebrew Scriptures, ending with Second Chronicles. But now the problem with this is that Rick, you may not understand this book, and other Christians may not understand, other non-Jews might not understand, because it's kind of a weird book in some ways, because it switches between explaining what's going on in the verses of the Torah, and then it starts telling you about, for example, in this one, it starts talking about the Jewish calendar, different things we do. For example, calculating the lunar calendar and the solar calendar, things like that. But then you get other things in here that are just commentary. And he references at the beginning of this, he references the Ramban's commentary. He does a great job summarizing. I was studying the Ramban over Shabbat for the last couple of weeks, and on this section, and then I read Mem Loez, and he just summarizes it so beautifully, just so simply. He puts it in there, and so it's fantastic. And then it has all these Jewish laws. It'll tell you different things. Like, for example, once a month we get together and we have what's called Rosh Chodesh. It means new month. So every month we celebrate the moving on to the next month, and it's a celebration when the new moon appears, and we after davening Motzi Shabbat at the end of Shabbat, after we've done our evening prayers, we go outside, we find the moon in the sky, and then we say a blessing, recognizing the great blessings that Hashem's given to us. And we do this every month. And it talks about this in Samuel with, if you'll remember, King David would go every month and eat with King Saul. And they'd have a big feast, and David didn't show up one month, and he flips out. He makes a big deal about it. So this is something actually that has been going on ever since biblical times. It's a special holiday for women. It's a monthly holiday for women where they're supposed to be able to take the day off, make their husbands get up and stop being lazy bums and take care of some things for them, you know. So yeah, sure. Say it again. Oh man, you're starting to think like a Talmudist now. So what happens is it's very simple. Is that you can put it off the blessing for a certain period of time, but if it comes down to it, it's number one. It's better to do the blessing uh, with a minyan, with a group of men, especially after Shabbat. Um, so ideally, that's when you're going to do it. You can put it off, do it later in the week, but eventually, even if you can't see the moon, you still do the blessing. Eventually, yeah. Because sometimes also it's just hard to see the moon because other things like not just cloud cover and the weather and things like that, but uh, you might be in an area where it's just hard to see the moon. But yeah, there have been times when I've gone out there. I just laugh because it's sort of an internal joke for us, and that is that here we are, a bunch of idol worshippers. We're super strict, a monotheist, super strict monotheist. And then once a month we go out, look at the moon, and then start saying a blessing, And like, what? Everyone just think we're crazy or something. But no, we're not praying to the moon. But, yeah, right. But all of this, which is what we're talking about this week. We're talking about actually that exact same thing. And that's why in Mem Loaz we have all this information that's going on here. So let me just start, and I'm going to read from Mem Loaz. I'm going to kind of scan through it, and because I really want to go over what the Ramban has to say here, and I want to make sure that I've been flipping around crazily with it, uh, and I've lost my place. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. The Ramban writes that the light created on the first day is the light of the primeval elements. Okay, primeval elements. We're already getting a little weird here. All right. What are primeval elements? Well, when we talked about this whole creation process, remember we talked about the Hillel, the two potentials that were brought into existence and that then began to split up. And when God said, "Let there be light" at the very beginning, that light was illuminating all the potential in the universe that existed at that time. And those are the fundamental elements that we're talking about here. On the second day, the firmament was created, separating this light from the world. So here was the problem. We have the first day we have this light created. Second day, God creates the firmament, and we can't see the light anymore. Right? Because this whole thing is going to come back around because it's a very strange thing. Day one, God creates the light. Day four, He creates the sun and the moon and the stars, which that's what we use for light for during the day and during the night. Before that, on day one, we did not have any of that. And so what's going on? What is the difference between the light of the first day versus the light of the fourth day? Why was there a need to recreate this? We already have, day and night are what we call light and dark, and they're already separated. But now it seems like almost like we're recreating the lights again. So he says here, so when the dry land was formed on the third day, the world was in absolute darkness. So we went from having light in the universe, the firmament's created, and then the second, third day we have no light. Then on the fourth day, God commanded a portion of the original light to form the sun and moon illuminating the world. This is alluded to in the verse, let them be lights in the firmament of the heavens to illuminate the earth. This indicates that the light was created on the first day, but it could not shine on the earth until the fourth day. So there are two answers about what happens with the light, where the sun and the moon come from. One idea is that uh, uh, the um, the light from the first day is actually um, broken up and forms these new sources of light, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Another idea is that these things are actually reflecting the light from the first day. So we have these two options here with the light. The sun and the moon were hung in a single window during the first 3 hours of the day. Some say that, oh, so I don't want to go into I don't want to go too far into that, but the notion is that the sun and the moon and the stars are created with specific tasks. The light of creation that we started the day off with had a task, but it was almost immediately proved to be redundant. So one question that's asked is what happened to this light? And so Rashi tells us that God put it aside for the time when for just when the righteous exist, right? When after the resurrection of the dead, this light will return to the world. And it's a special light. It's a special holy light. It's not just like light, like like the solar light. Now we go into a little midrash, and it says the sun and the moon were created equal both in the size and in brightness, as the scripture says, and God made the two great lights. So it sounds like from the script from Genesis that he says, and God created the two great lights. So they must be the same, right? They must be the same size, must be the same everything. This was their form for somewhat less than 21 years. Another opinion is that they remained equal for 21 hours. I'm not sure where they have 21 from, but then there was a dispute between the sun and the moon. The, it could be like I mean, there are lots of ways we can get to 21. I don't, 21. 7 minus 28 is 21. I don't know. So 8 times 3 is 24 plus 3 is 27. I'm sorry, I'm not plus, minus 3. So 8 times 3 is 24, minus 3 is 21. So we have another way to get there. Like you have to have sort of like a reason why you're doing math to figure these things out. No, it is actually. No, it is. It's a very important number in Scripture. It's the number of days for the Brit Milah, the circumcision that happens. We have it. Yeah, we have you have Pesach, and you have the Feast of Matzah, which put together are 8. We have a lot to do with 8 in the Scripture as well. And the reason why is because 7 represents nature and 8 represents going beyond nature. And this is where we find God. God is beyond nature. Nature is and this is the problem with a lot of the world religions is they end up getting trapped in nature. Um, the idolatry and everything else. I was studying a little bit with my kids on Shabbat regarding the Tower of Babel, and they're why did they make the Tower of Babel? Why do they think they could rebel against God? What was going on with them? So we talked about that, and a lot of it had to do with they sort of became trapped in a concept of nature that wouldn't allow them to see beyond that. So no, in the Hebrew scriptures, actually 8 is also a very important number. 7 and 8, share different things. They have different reasons why you might want to take a look at them. So yeah, yeah. Sukkot is 8 days. Pesach has 7 days, and the eighth day of you have the feast of Matzah. You have Pesach. Uh, so yeah, we have eight coming up pretty often, and but all these numbers are relevant. So you talk about, for example, every 28 years we have a special blessing we say on the sun, and we had that just a few years ago, and so I've lived through two of those, and so hopefully I'll see the third time and we get to do a blessing on the sun. Um, well, I'm not 56. I'm just saying that it happened twice during my lifetime so far. Like it was 28. It was a few years ago, 28, and then I think it came at another. Yeah. So uh, without being right, right, exactly. That's right. One. So then there was a dispute between the sun and the moon, and this is allegory. This is meant to teach us something here. This is not meant to be taken literally. The moon complained, two kings could not rule with the same crown. God became angry and made the moon smaller. The sun was enlarged because it did not enter into this dispute. The moon was not visible at all until Adam prayed that it should be restored to some extent. Each month, the moon continues to wane until nothing at all can be seen. Then comes the molad, the rebirth, when the moon once again becomes visible. The moon remains invisible for 7 or 8 hours. The moon is an opaque, dark body having no light of its own. We thus say on the Shabbat prayer before the Shema, God saw and rectified the form of the moon. The wording indicates that it is a form without light. So, right. So anyway, so the idea of the idea of this discussion was not that literally this the sun and moon at one time used to be the same size. It's trying to give us an idea of humility. Trying to tell us to be humble. And because when you're not humble, then you reduce yourself, or God reduces you. And or even, but it also you reduce yourself. And when you are humble and you refrain from speaking, and then you receive greatness and increase. And so that's the idea that it's trying to teach us with that. So I don't want to get into the lunar blessing because most people it won't be so relevant to them. Um, so you might find this interesting is that every 3 years, because we're on a lunar calendar, the Jewish people are, and every 3 years we have to add a month, and that is called Adar 2, and we are actually yeah. No, it's like every 3 years, and it's actually this year we're doing Adar second. So this week, right? And so this coming week, like on Tuesday, it's Rosh Chodesh. We start the second Adar, so that'll be happening, and then we have Purim in just a couple of weeks. So we're quickly moving towards that. She was like, "I gotta hurry to get this thing done." So I still have another seven panels. It's uh, uh, but they're half a page, and then some of them have like large crowds in them, and for comic book work, yeah. But I'm doing everything. I'm pencil inking and coloring it, so that adds everything. So The pencil inking doesn't take me very long because, as you know, my style is very simplistic when it comes to drawing and inking. It's the coloring that takes me because I'm not very fast as a colorist. I'm still pretty new at it. Um, so the moon, I don't know if I want to get into the lunar stuff so much. Oh, so here we go. Here he talks about the leap year. Approximately every 3 years, an extra month is added to the lunar year, making it a leap year. This month is added by doubling the month of Adar. The solar year is approximately 10 days longer than the lunar year. When the additional amounts add up to 30 days, an extra month must be added. So the lunar year continues to conform to the solar year. And the reason that we do this is because we want Pesach to always be in the spring. We have our holidays have to fall a certain time. So if you take the Muslims, for example, Ramadan just travels throughout the year. It's a different part of the year every year. And but for us, we do a corrective measure. So we always have Pesach in the spring. We have Sukkot, the high holidays in the fall, and so everything works out. And so all of this is related to the solar lunar calendar, and we find that out when we talk about that God made these as signs in the heavens. These things teach us the times when we're supposed to actually uh, okay. What determines when you do Easter? Wait a second. Are you telling me that you Christians sit around waiting to find out when we're going to have Pesach, and then you go, "Ah, time for Easter"? Is that what's going on? but it's basically requires that we know when Pesach is going to come around. That's pretty funny. Yeah, there is. In case you had something where either you were traveling from afar or you're contaminated. And it takes a certain amount of time to become clean in the period of the temple. And so the go ahead. Okay. Is that a question or a statement? A little bit of both. Okay. Okay. That's right. Why do I hear my phone? Yeah, hold on just a second. I'll find out what's going on with that. So my wife's phone my wife's phone went kablooey today, so all her friends are calling my phone. So so which is fine. Yeah. I feel bad because it's like it's a nice phone. It's too bad. It's just one of those things where it came with like a technical issue. They didn't finish making the thing correctly. And so we've had it for like 3 or 4 years, and it's always had a little bit of problem. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. What were we talking about? Oh, oh, okay. That's that's right. 114. That's right. I dream of the day when we get out chapter one. I look forward to it. But actually, it's actually kind of fun going through it slowly. I've learned a lot going through it slowly here because I realized I zoomed through parts of it, and I've just learned so much just slowing down. Right. 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 I do. Yes. So I'm just checking something real quick. Yeah. Summarizing, I think, is more likely what you did. Yes. So, interestingly, if you look at verse 15, it says, Vayihu lemarot. So earlier I talked about how the light of creation became the sun, the moon, and the stars. And the hint is there in verse 15 because Vayu um, is singular, right? Lemarot is plural. So 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 one thing became at least two things, right? And this is the point that Ramban makes about this. And um, so it's interesting that this is possibly one area where they get this idea from, is that we're going from a singular to a plural, and this is one of the areas that Hebrew is very useful. Knowing it helps you catch on to some secrets and things you normally wouldn't come across. So again, I always encourage people to if they can to learn it. So vayu l'morot berakia hashemayim v'ha'ir al haaretz vayikain. So and he said, let there be lights in the rakia of the heavens to illuminate or give light upon the earth, and it was so. So this whole thing goes back to the idea that go ahead. 15. That was 15. That was 14. Well, maybe you have a number differently. I mean, I know, so 14 says, God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate day from night. They shall serve as signs for the set times, the days, and the years. And then 15 says, and they shall serve as lights in the expanse of the sky to shine upon the earth. And it was so. 15 is what we're reading. Rakia, the Rakia, the expanse, the firmament. Well, I was talking about first 14, but then I moved into 15 because I want to talk about the light and give a textual anchor for the discussion of the light being broken up, or at least focused into certain other physical objects and being a source of light for them. Um, but so um, what I was going to make is in the Rakia. The reason this is important is because this right here it tells us the idea that the light from the first day of creation must have been blocked off. Otherwise, why do we need lights to be placed in the firmament of the heavens, right? Why do we need the sun and moon and stars? And why are they being placed here? Because there is no light. The light has somehow become hidden at this point. And this is an important point that comes up in a lot of different ways in the Torah, and that is the idea of the hiddenness of God, that God is hidden. And we see this, we've got Purim coming up, and Purim is all about this concept, which is God is hidden in the world. And even though he may not be obvious, he's there. And even though his miracle, maybe he's not um, sending 10 plagues or appearing on a fiery mountain to you, but he's still there. And this is also this idea of God being hidden and the light is being hidden. And light a lot of times is representative of the Torah. And the Torah, is also in some ways is hidden by becoming clothed in the physical. So there's an idea that we have the Torah in heaven, which was brought down to earth, and so we talked about that I think already in the first episode that we did. So it's supposed to give light upon the earth. So it's interesting here. So the job of the lights, and I'm going back to 14, is to separate day from night. And why do we do this? Well, because that's what day and night are called. The light is called day, and the night is called, and the dark is called night. So they're meant to make a distinction. The sun makes a distinction because it has the brighter light, and the moon has the lesser light. So that's how they make the distinction. Are you talking about the lights in the heavens? You're talking about the sun and the moon and the stars? Well, that's exactly what the Ramban is saying. The Ramban is saying that's one theory of what God did was God just took that light and he broke it down and put it into the heavens. The other idea is that actually these the sun and the stars reflect the light of the first day of creation. Um, but it's up for debate. It's up for debate as to which one he's talking about. ויעשה אלוקים את שני המאורות הגדולים את מאור הגדול לממשלת היום ואת המאור הקטן לממשלת הלילה ואת הכוכבים. So God said, so God made the great lights, the big light. We're at 16, thank you. Yeah. The big light is to dominate the day, and the smaller light is to dominate the night. And it was so. It's not so. I just added that in. And the stars. And so that's an interesting thing. So if you read that literally, and the smaller light is to rule over the night and the stars. So the moon rules over the stars. That's part of its kingdom. The other way, if you read this, the way they've got this punctuated in English, you could almost read it like, and the moon, the less light, is to dominate the night and the stars. So does and the stars, does that apply to via us and God created? No, because God created refers to Et Sheni. Et Sheni, at least you could say this. It could be that we have a break here. And this is which is kind of confusing. And if you'll remember, I told you the Aleph Tav, and you can kind of see, I don't know if you see my pointer. The Aleph Tav right here. Can you see that? No. Um, the Aleph Tav serves as a direct object marker. So you could say, and God made the two lights. And you have a bunch of information over here, and it says, and the stars. So you could possibly read that as there being that God says, and God made the two lights, right? And then he explains the differences between them. He says, and also the stars, meaning he created the two lights and the stars. So you could read it that way, but you can also read it as saying God created the two lights, and the dominion of the sun, the big light, is the day, and the small light, its dominion is the night and the stars. So so you can actually read this two different ways. Right. That's true, and it could be that that's the more correct interpretation of it. It could also be that this is not talking about a physical rulership; it's talking about a spiritual rulership, like a different kind of dominion. Because what is it? What is it? Uh, I guess you have to ask yourself what is it talking about when it says that they'll have dominion? What does dominion mean here? And I believe it talked about this. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, but what does that mean? Yeah, okay. So what does that mean? How do you rule overnight? Right. That's my point. My point is, how do you rule over day? How do you rule overnight? No, the interest. Well, that's I think that's a pretty common sense interpretation of it. But there's also it's also interesting though that if you look at the creation of a lot of the more like pagan mythologies, um, then we have well, let me just go back to this. The Rambam, Moses Maimonides, writes that he says how does idolatry enter the world? If you read Genesis, it's Adam is still alive and idolatry enters the world. You got the guy who was created and was there from the beginning, pretty much. After he was created, he knew what was going on. He talked with God. Everybody comes from this guy. This is everybody's daddy, right? But yet, very soon the world got went into idolatry, and then after the flood, you had a similar situation, which we see with the Tower of Babel. So how do people get into to all of this? It's very simple. The Rambam. Go ahead. Right. He moved around. He wandered. Yeah. Well, but Cain is not spreading around this falsehood. Cain knows just as well as Adam what happened. right? He was, but Rick, you're like, there's 20 people in the world, right? And you're talking just very quickly. Suddenly, there's idolatry in the world. Like within 300 years, there's idolatry. I think because it happens. It happens in the days of Hanok, I believe. And we'll come to that later on. We'll have that. And it's an interesting thing the way that the Torah phrases it to let you know that that's what's going on. But how does idolatry come into the world? So the Rambam says that look, he says people made a very simple mistake. The mistake they made, excuse me, the mistake they made was they recognized that there are forces in the universe, and these forces, whether they're angels or whether they were um, uh, planets or whatever else, they were God's servants. And there's also something I skipped over, which is the idea that angels are actually in charge of guiding the course of the moon and stars and everything in the heavens. And so that, but anyway, I don't need to get into that. I'm trying to stay away from the rabbit trails, Rick. It's your job to it's your job to get me on the rabbit trails. It's not my job to do that. My job is to stay away from the rabbit trails. But you're not providing any rabbit trails, so I'm sort of self-creating them, and then I have to pull myself back. What's your problem? A couple, yeah, but you're just really falling down the job. I feel like these days. I think next week you need to prepare yourself, write down some notes, and okay, we're probably gonna talk about this next week. I'll get them here. Rabbit trail, that'll take at least 15 minutes. Rabbit trail is another 30 minutes. All right, all right. I'll try to do better, Rick. I'll try to give you something to do a rabbit trail with. So the Rambam says everybody does made a mistake, and that is that they said, look, the moon and the stars are the servants of God. These divine powers, the angels, God's servants. And if you have a king, and the king sends his messenger, his representative to you, do you treat him like the village idiot? Do you treat him like a commoner? No, you treat him like he's the king, because this is the king's agent. This is the king's servant. He talks to the king directly. So when he talks, it's like the king is talking. So you put on a show for him. So they said, look, we should do the same thing. We should, we praise God, and and we talk about how great and everything is. We should also praise these servants of God. And so very quickly, what happens is that you go from praising God's servants to praising to forgetting about God and praising only God's servants, and that is a history of idolatry, right? So so the idea of having dominion here also has another element, which is that of spiritual dominion. Um, Sorry, there's some things I want to talk about. They're too complex. I didn't study them well enough to actually go into them. It's about yeah. I mean, look, it's a lot of material to go through. Like just getting to the Ramban is a chore in of itself, because I mean, not a chore, but it's just a lot of material. You sometimes think through very very carefully. Um, no, well we yeah, we're slowly going through it. We're just really focusing on one aspect. There are a lot of commentators have their own opinions and who share. and they have agreements and disagreements with other commentators, like the Ramban, like we I showed you, he is routinely disagreeing with Ibn Ezra. He sometimes agrees with, other times disagrees with Rashi. He has the same sort of relationship with the Rambam. Um, so don't do that. I'm highly susceptible to yawning right now. So anyway, now just blame me. Go ahead, blame me. Just blame me for blame all your sins upon me. That's fine. So what's that? Say it again. Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. So see, I'm flirting with the idea of going into 120 because I know we have read. Let me read verse 17. V'tein otam Elohim b'rakia hashemayim va'ir al haaretz, and God set them in the expanse of the sky to shine upon the earth. So part of their job is to shine upon the earth. V'limshol b'yom u'v'layla ulhavdil ben ha'or uvein hahoshech v'yara Elohim ki tov, to dominate the day and the night and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. Boker Yom Rivi'i. And there was evening and there was morning, a fourth day. Now, every week when we come out of Shabbat, we have what's called Havdala. Havdala is our is us going into the weekday. So what we do is we make a distinction between Shabbat that we just came out of and the weekday that we're going into. We have fire candles, multi-wick candles, incense, or something that smells, has nice, like spices or things like that, and wine. And we use those things to make a separation. You know what? Let me 1 second. Oh, I grabbed the wrong one. This is all very unprofessional, so I expect you to edit this out at some point. And I will likewise forget to edit it out myself. Well, great. Well, just send me if there are any comments or questions, send them over to me, and maybe we can talk about those. So, what are you looking for? That's interesting. Sure. Yeah, that is pretty cool because I don't think nobody looks at my station. Of course, mine is like 15 minutes here and there. That's all we've been able to save on my station, because I guess my internet kept cutting out. So it says this is called a bencher, and it's something we use for making blessings on food and other things, and we use it for Havdala. And it says, "He who makes a distinction between the sacred and the secular May he also pardon our sins. May he proliferate our children and our wealth like the sand and like the stars at night. And so Havdala is about making the distinctions, right? You want to make it. You recognize that God makes a distinction between the day and the night, the in the weekday and the Shabbat, and these distinctions. This is going back to this notion of like we were talking 7 and 8 and things like that, and they communicate different ideas. The Shabbat was the holiday that God made the biggest distinction with, um, because on it says he rested. It actually says literally he says he Shabbated on Shabbat. He Shabbat just means cease. And I don't get too far into that. So this Havdalah is the same thing here, the same as the word right here. In Genesis, lahavdil, lahavdil, and he separated between the light and between the darkness. So Havdalah is about separation and recognizing the separation. And here we have in Genesis what's going on, and part of the acts of creation is this process of separation, of distinguishing one thing from another thing. Not that one thing is bad and one thing is good necessarily, but that the fact that the things are separated and in their own domain, that in itself is a good thing. So anyway, so he separates between the light and between the darkness, and he saw that it was good, and it was evening and it was morning, a fourth day. So since you have already gone and started looking at your commentary on the Rumble station, do you have a couple of comments we can discuss real quick? So I guess it was an ad. You just put an ad up there. Okay. Yeah. Well, I do remember we talked about it, and someone mentioned the Noah Ark exhibit. Like I don't think I think they've got a couple of people have built Noah's Arks. Like I seem to remember, I think, or maybe that was a tabernacle in Texas, West Texas. Um, but you know, that stuff is pretty interesting. It's just you know, what are you understanding about Noah's Ark? And this is what I think. This was the conversation you and I got into, which was, are we understanding that he literally got every creature in the world on that boat, and there was room for that, um, as it was. Okay. Well, it doesn't mention sea creatures, right? But I'm talking about. Well, I said on Earth, like all the land animals. Yeah, but mhm. Let me ask you this question: What do you think the purpose of the flood story is in the Bible? Okay. 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 Save us from what? Do you think God create? Well, then if Noah was righteous, then well, I guess we're skipping over a couple of assumptions here. So my question is that are you saying that God created man just so God could save man? Is that is that was that God's intention of creation was so that he could save man? But I mean, what I guess what I'm trying to get to is that he included the story of Noah's flood for some reason, and he included the story of um, Noah being put in the ark and the repopulation of the earth and all that. And the question is, why did he do that? You know, he could have just started the Bible off and never brought any of that up. Instead of mentioning Adam and everything else, he could have just said, and there's this guy named Noah who is everybody's daddy. And that, and so let's move on from there. And that's where we're going to start our story at. You know, what is the purpose of the flood narrative? What is the purpose of the story of Adam and Eve? Why does God need to put that stuff in there? Okay. What do you mean be truthful? So leave so not telling information that may have nothing to do with your practical life or your spiritual life or anything like that is just would be dishonest. I'm not trying to put you in a hard spot. I'm just saying that I think that um, sometimes people get caught up in discussing the flood story of Noah's Ark, and they feel like they have to prove it to be literally true in every regard. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but what I'm trying to say is that sometimes there's this question of, well, how do we explain that God got all these animals on the ark? Like that's suddenly the most important thing for us to figure out. I think that's a pretty minor point. I think the answer is because God caused a miracle to happen. Why do we have to explain it beyond that? Like that's not even. I don't think the point of the story is about the animals being on the boat, right? Or I mean, God fitting all the animals in the world on the boat. I don't really think that's the point. I think the point is something else. I think that God bringing the animals onto the ark is important. I think God, saving human beings through the ark is important, and God killing people not on that boat is also important. But I don't know that us trying to figure out how it happened exactly, and this is just, I feel like what happens is people feel like they're under attack from like atheism and those who are more persuaded towards science, and they feel like they have to give a rational scientific explanation for some of the things that happen. And I'm not saying that that doesn't exist, but I'm saying that I think people also get distracted from the real importance of the text. Um, like if we have a lot of trouble talking about what happened at the time of the flood. When do we date it? When did it happen? A lack of what some people would say is evidence for a universal flood. Although since we've never seen a universal flood before, what kind of evidence would we look for? So that's also important. And the problem is that um, I think we know well that stuff is from the explanation of the oceans, land masses rising and falling. No, I understand, but but that's not necessarily because of floods. That's because at one point the mountains were under the water, and then other points, according to geology, at certain points the mountains or whatever were under the water, and other points they came up out of the water, and that's why there are clams on top of that. But what kind of evidence do you have to do? Okay, that I don't know. I don't know about that, but I'm just saying that. Yeah. Right. Well, look, if I guess part of what I'm really trying to get out here is that when you talk about, and I guess we should actually get off. This is actually the end of it. Um, I just want to make the point that don't get too hung up on this. It's nice that they have this museum, but sometimes I feel like museums like this is the way the reason they exist is because people feel like if they don't put up stuff like this, then that somehow makes the Bible look weak because we need science to combat science. We need science on our side to talk about why the Bible's true. And I don't know that it necessarily follows because I don't think people are really considering what the purpose of science is. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this week. Yeah. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Psalm 119 overall is a very interesting psalm because it's, I think, the longest psalm in the entire book of Psalms, and it spends a lot of time dealing with the Torah and the wondrous nature of the Torah. And it talks about the Torah directly. And I think that in English it always gets translated as the law. I think that's a really a disservice for people who aren't Jewish or who don't read Hebrew, is because I don't think you understand the importance of the Torah. And the entire Tanakh is about the Torah, and it's about the Jewish people, and it's about Israel. And I think that for some reason these things get segmented into their own compartments, but they're all actually related. And Psalm 119 is a very important psalm, and I would just encourage anyone who hasn't read it or hasn't read it in a while to go back and read it and meditate on it and think about it, because you have to, I think it'll turn you on to the idea that when we talk about the Torah, we're talking about Genesis, and we're spending so much time going slowly through it. It's not because we're bored; it's because of how important it is. And just consider that. Anyway, that's we're 3 minutes over. I just want to say thanks for everybody who stayed on, and keep leaving your comments. Maybe a little bit more context when you leave a comment. Sometimes just a verse isn't always telling us what you're trying to communicate. But yeah, just if you can leave a comment and tell us what you're responding to from the show. and the minute marker or something like that. That way we can actually go back, take a look at it, and know what to say. Rick, thanks for coming with me this week, and we'll see everybody next week. We'll start in one. No, 120, 120, 120 next week, and we'll go from 120 to whatever. We are past the teens. We have grown up. We have gone. We joined the army or whatever else, and we are almost old enough to drink at this point. All right. So you guys have a great week. That's true. That is true. Depends on where you live.
Well, thank you for watching. Yeah, we got to what, verse 19? That was cool. Yeah, it's interesting going through this slowly, learning what we did. And sorry about the spots where my audio went out. I don't know what happened there. Hopefully, this next coming video after this will have figured that out. So yeah, again, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you are enjoying these series. Please let me know in the comments below, and your comments on things as well, either on YouTube or Rumble. And as Hillel said, maybe make sure we know what your comment is towards, because when we go back and read them, it could be a week or two since or more since we would have gotten to it, so we might not know remember exactly what we said. Everybody has busy lives. So, okay, thanks. Bye for now. God bless. Love y'all. See you next time.